Tonight, we're going to dive deep into a condition that messes with the sleep of millions. We're talking about something that turns what should be a peaceful rest into a silent, nightly fight just to breathe.
So let me ask you something. Does this sound familiar? You go to bed, you think you get a full night's sleep, but you wake up feeling just drained, foggy, exhausted, and definitely not refreshed. If you're nodding along right now, you are in the right place, because that feeling, it's a major clue.
So what in the world is going on? Well, it's a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA for short. The easiest way to think about it is like this. Imagine trying to drink through a soft, flimsy straw. If you suck too hard, it collapses, right? That's kind of what happens in your throat. When you sleep, the soft tissues relax and, well, they collapse, blocking off your airway. This makes you stop breathing over and over, sometimes hundreds of times a night, and you might not even know it's happening. Your body is pretty smart. When something's not right, it sends out warning signals. So let's break down the clues that could be pointing to OSA. And you might be surprised because the signs don't just happen when you're asleep.
Okay, check this out. It's really a tale of two different experiences, night versus day. At night, maybe a partner has told you about your loud snoring. Or maybe they've noticed you actually stop breathing for a moment and then suddenly gasp for air. You might be tossing and turning all night, literally fighting for breath in your sleep. And then, the next day, you feel the consequences. That crushing daytime sleepiness, feeling cranky and irritable, struggling to focus. It's a vicious 24-hour cycle. And the list doesn't stop there. Waking up with a pounding headache, that's a classic sign. Or a mouth that feels as dry as a desert, that too. Some people even deal with heartburn at night, or notice real effects on their mood and memory. We're talking depression and brain fog. It's all connected to how that disrupted sleep impacts your entire body.
So you're probably wondering, why does this happen to some people and not others? Well, it's usually a mix of our physical build, our genetics, and our lifestyle. Let's dig into the main risk factors to see who's most likely to be affected.
This really lays out the big ones. Excess weight is a major factor, since it can add extra tissue around the airway that's more likely to collapse. Men are generally at a higher risk, but for women, that risk really jumps up after menopause. And then some of it is just down to anatomy, Things you can't control, like having a thicker neck, a naturally smaller airway, or even large tonsils.
But it's not just about our physical build. Our habits and history play a huge part too. If sleep apnea runs in your family, you're more likely to have it. The risk also naturally goes up as we get older. And this is a big one. Things like drinking alcohol, especially in your bedtime, or smoking. Both of those things can relax your airway muscles even more, which just makes the whole problem worse.
Now, if you're listening to all this and thinking, wow, that sounds like me, I've got good news. Finding out for sure if you have it is a really clear process. You don't have to just sit and wonder about it. The journey to getting answers is actually pretty straightforward. It just starts with a conversation with your doctor. Tell them everything you're experiencing. Your doctor will do a physical check, and then they'll probably refer you to a sleep specialist. And that leads to the final step, a sleep study. This is the key. It monitors your breathing and oxygen levels all night, and it gives a definite yes or no answer. And hey, you can often do it right in your own bed at home.
Okay, so let's say you get the diagnosis. What's next? Well, this is the really hopeful part. There are some incredibly effective ways to manage OSA so you can finally get your sleep and your health back on track.
A lot of times, the first line of defense is making some lifestyle changes. And honestly, these can be total game changers. For some people, losing weight can drastically reduce symptoms, or even make them disappear completely. Quitting smoking, cutting back on alcohol before bed, these are simple but powerful things that put you back in control.
For many, the go-to treatment is what's called a CPAP machine. I know, it can look a little intense, but what it does is actually really simple and pretty brilliant. It sends a gentle, steady stream of air through a mask while you sleep. And that constant air pressure, it acts like a little support system, an air splint that physically holds your airway open so you can breathe easily all night long.
But a CPAP isn't the only option. Another great one is an oral appliance. Just think of it like a custom-made mouthguard that you get from a dentist. It works by gently shifting your lower jaw forward just a tiny bit. And that simple change is often enough to tighten up the muscles back there and keep your airway from collapsing.
Now, here's a quick but really important distinction. Everything we've been talking about is obstructive sleep apnea. That's the one with the physical blockage, the plumbing problem, like a kink in a hose. But there's another type called central sleep apnea. With that one,
The airway is actually open, but the brain just forgets to tell the body to breathe. It's more of an electrical issue, not a plumbing one. And that's why loud snoring is a classic sign of the obstructive kind, but not so much for the central type.
So we've gone through the symptoms and the treatments, but we really need to talk about why this is also important. Because ignoring sleep apnea, well, it's just not an option. The long-term risks to your health are really serious.
And this is why. Every single time you stop breathing, your blood oxygen plummets, and your body gets hit with a wave of stress hormones. Imagine that happening hundreds of times a night, year after year. That constant strain takes a huge toll. Untreated OSA dramatically raises your risk for all the things you see here: high blood pressure, heart failure, stroke, diabetes. And that's not even mentioning the very real danger of falling asleep while driving or at work. So treating this isn't just about feeling less tired, it's truly about protecting your life. So we'll leave you with this to think about. Sleep is supposed to be your body's time to rest, to heal, to recharge. If your nights have turned into an exhausting battle just to get enough air, isn't it time to find a way back to peaceful sleep? Please talk to your doctor. The journey to a healthier, more energetic life might just begin with one good night's sleep.